Welcome, curious souls. To Grey Vale echoes your portal to the world's most chilling mysteries and untold stories. Join us as we uncover the strange, the supernatural, and the truly unexplained. Deep in the Scottish Highlands, a dark, ancient lake hides more than just cold water. For centuries, whispers have told of something vast and unknown lurking beneath its surface. A creature that defies explanation. Deep in the Scottish Highlands, where ancient mountains carve through the mist and the air hums with a history as old as time itself, lies a dark, vast expanse of water. Loch Ness is a place that has always felt different. A place where the ordinary rules of the world seem to thin, allowing whispers of something truly ancient and unknown to seep through. For centuries, before cameras or sonar, before the world even knew the name Nessie, this immense, cold lake held secrets, fueling a deep-seated dread in the hearts of those who lived along its shores. It wasn't just cold water it hid. It was the echo of primal fear, a sense that something vast and powerful, something utterly untamed, lay just beneath the black surface, watching, waiting, the very first chilling encounter, the one that anchors the legend in the distant past, comes to us from the 6th century. A time when Christianity was still a fragile flame flickering against the vast pagan darkness of Scotland. It involves a holy man, Saint Columba, a figure of immense spiritual power and legendary deeds. He was a missionary, traveling through this wild, untamed land, seeking to bring a new faith to its people. One day, so the story goes, Columba and his companions were making their way along the banks of the River Ness, which flows out from the loch. The air would have been crisp, the landscape rugged, and the sense of isolation profound. This was a world where wild animals roamed freely, and the line between man and nature was often blurred. A world where the supernatural felt very close indeed. As they reached the river, a terrifying scene unfolded before their eyes. A group of local Picts were burying a man, his body mangled, his spirit clearly departed. With grim faces, they explained what had happened. The man had been swimming in the river, likely just a short distance from the loch itself, when suddenly, a monstrous creature had risen from the depths. It was enormous, a beast of immense power and malevolence. It had attacked him, dragging him down, tearing him apart in the icy grip of the river. The terror of the moment must have been palpable, a stark reminder of the unforgiving wilderness and the unknown perils that lurked within its waters. The Picts, a people deeply connected to their land and its spirits, would have known the fear of the water, of the things that dwelt within the dark pools and rushing currents. But Saint Columba was not a man to be easily swayed by fear or to accept such a tragedy without action. He was a man of faith, and he believed in the power of the divine to overcome all darkness. He commanded one of his followers, a brave man named Murky, to swim across the river and retrieve a small boat that was on the opposite bank. Murky, despite the recent horrifying event, obeyed without hesitation. He stripped down and plunged into the cold, swirling water, his strokes strong and steady. The river was wide, the current formidable, and the recent horror a fresh stain on the minds of all who watched. As Murky swam, the air grew tense. Suddenly, a dreadful disturbance broke the surface of the river. A colossal creature, a beast like nothing they had ever seen, burst forth from the murky depths. It was immense, a dark, shadowy form with an open maw, surging towards the swimming man with terrifying speed and a clear intent to kill. The water churned and foamed around it, a violent display of raw, predatory power. On the bank, the onlookers would have cried out in horror, paralyzed by the sudden, brutal resurgence of the monster. Loch Ness himself, caught in the beast's path, must have felt the icy grip of terror, the sudden, overwhelming certainty of his impending doom. But then, St. Columba acted. He raised his hand, not in fear, but in unwavering authority. His voice, clear and strong, cut through the roars of the beast and the cries of the terrified onlookers. "Go no further," he commanded, his words directed at the monstrous thing in the water. "Do not touch this man. Go back at once." His words were not a plea, but an order, a divine decree. And then, something truly astonishing happened. The beast, which moments before had been a relentless engine of destruction, seemed to flinch. Its terrifying surge faltered. It stopped, as if struck by an invisible wall. Then, slowly, unbelievably, turned, with a sound that might have been a hiss or a defeated growl. It retreated, sinking back into the depths from which it had come, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Loch Ness, shaken but unharmed, completed his swim, reaching the safety of the boat. The scene must have been etched forever into the memories of all who witnessed it. St. Columba, the holy man, had faced down a monster of the deep, a creature of immense power, and had driven it away with nothing but the strength of his faith. This wasn't just a story of a monster. It was a story of a monster vanquished. It cemented the idea that such creatures existed in these waters, but also that they could be defied, though perhaps only by forces beyond human understanding. This ancient encounter, recorded in the life of St. Columba, written by Adamnan about a century after the event, is the earliest recorded sighting of a monstrous inhabitant of the Ness waters. It set a precedent, a chilling historical marker, ensuring that the notion of a vast, unseen creature in these dark depths would persist for generations. It wasn't just a folktale. It was an account from a revered historical figure, giving it a weight and a terrifying reality that would echo through the centuries. Yet, St. Columba's encounter was not an isolated incident in the collective consciousness of Scotland. The idea of malevolent creatures lurking in the water was already deeply woven into the fabric of Scottish folklore. Long before the 6th century, and certainly long after, local people whispered tales of water horses, known in Scottish Gaelic as each witch, and other terrifying lake spirits like kelpies. These weren't cuddly, friendly beings. Far from it. These were dark, shape-shifting entities, creatures of immense power and sinister intent, that inhabited the lochs, rivers, and even the coastal waters of Scotland. Their stories served as grim warnings, terrifying lessons for anyone foolish enough to venture too close to the water's edge. Or worse, to enter its cold embrace unwisely. The each-witch, or water horse, was perhaps the most feared. These creatures were said to be masters of disguise, capable of transforming themselves into alluring forms to lure their unsuspecting victims. Sometimes they appeared as magnificent, black horses, their coats glistening, their manes flowing, tempting weary travelers with the promise of a swift ride. Other times, they took the form of handsome men, their charm irresistible, especially to young women. But beneath the seductive exterior lay a terrifying reality. Once a person mounted the water horse, or fell under the spell of its human guise, they were doomed. The creature's skin would become impossibly sticky, trapping the victim. Then, it would plunge into the deepest part of the loch or river, dragging its struggling prey down into the icy darkness, never to be seen again, the only part of the victim ever found, so the tales often claimed, would be the liver, floating to the surface. It was a brutal, unsettling fate, and the stories instilled a profound and justified fear of the water. These weren't monsters that simply appeared and disappeared. They actively hunted, actively lured, actively killed. Kelpies were similar, though often associated more with rivers and streams. They, too, often appeared as horses, but could also take on human form. Their intentions were equally sinister, dragging people to watery graves. These myths were born from a very real respect, and indeed fear, of nature's power. The lochs of Scotland are often deep, cold, and unforgiving. Drowning was a common tragedy in a land crisscrossed by water. So, these stories served a vital purpose: to keep children away from dangerous waters, to caution adults against recklessness, and to explain the inexplicable disappearances that sometimes occurred. They gave a face to the unseen dangers, a chilling narrative to the cold, dark grip of the loch. This widespread folklore created a profound, primordial fear of the unknown beneath the waves. It wasn't just Loch Ness. Every major loch in Scotland had its stories, its whispers of creatures dwelling in the depths. From Loch Lomond to Loch Morar, the idea that something ancient, powerful, and malevolent could lurk unseen was deeply ingrained. People grew up with these tales, their imaginations filled with the dread of sudden plunges into icy water, of being dragged down by an unseen force. When St. Columba's account of the Ness monster emerged, it didn't create a new fear. It simply gave a specific, terrifying confirmation to an existing, widespread anxiety. It confirmed that the waters of Ness, like so many other Scottish lochs, harbored something truly monstrous. The beast in the river was not an anomaly. It was a manifestation of the very real, very ancient fear of the water horse, a creature that had been tormenting the Scottish imagination for generations. The legend of Nessie, therefore, didn't appear out of nowhere in the 1930s. It was built on a foundation of centuries of chilling folklore, of stories told around peat fires on dark, stormy nights, of a deep-seated respect and terror for the untamed waters of Scotland. It was a fear that settled deep in the bones, a recognition that the world held dangers far beyond the visible. And then there is the loch itself, Loch Ness, an entity that almost feels like a character in this ancient, terrifying narrative. Its very nature provides the perfect, foreboding sanctuary for a hidden giant. Picture it, a vast, elongated body of water, stretching for over 20 miles through the Great Glen of Scotland. Its surface can be deceptively calm on a sunny day, but more often than not, it is windswept, choppy, and ominous, reflecting the perpetually gray skies of the Highlands. The water itself is incredibly dark, a deep, peat-stained hue that gives it a nearly impenetrable murkiness. This isn't crystal clear alpine water. This is water that holds secrets in its very color, absorbing light within mere feet of the surface. Dive just a few feet down, and the world above vanishes, replaced by an inky, featureless blackness. But it's not just the darkness. It's the depth. Loch Ness is incredibly deep, plummeting to over 750 feet in some places. That's deeper than the North Sea in many areas. Deeper than the tops of many mountains are high. This immense depth creates an underwater world that is vast and largely unexplored. Imagine a creature, any creature, with an entire sunken mountain range as its home, with countless hidden crevices, caves, and abyssal plains where it could dwell, hunt, and reproduce, entirely undisturbed by the surface world. The sheer volume of water is staggering. Loch Ness holds more fresh water than all the lakes of England and Wales combined. It's an inland ocean, a world unto itself. This vastness, combined with the extreme depth and the utter lack of visibility, makes it the ideal hiding place for a creature of immense size. If something truly gigantic called Loch Ness home could spend its entire life below the surface, never needing to venture into the light, never needing to surface for long, the cold, dark waters provide not just a physical hiding place, but a kind of natural camouflage, absorbing sound and light, making detection incredibly difficult. It is a world apart, a cold, silent realm where the sun's rays never penetrate, where ancient things could slumber undisturbed for centuries. The isolation of Loch Ness also plays a crucial role in fostering the legend. For much of history, the highlands were remote and sparsely populated. Traveling to and from the loch was difficult. Journeys were long and arduous. This isolation meant that stories and sightings, when they occurred, were often confined to the local communities, passed down through generations. There was no instant communication, no rapid spread of information. This allowed the legend to ferment and deepen, becoming part of the local identity, a terrifying secret shared among those who lived in the shadow of the Great Loch. It felt like a place where ancient laws still applied, where the primeval world still held sway. The loch was, and in many ways still is, a natural fortress, protecting its mysteries from the prying eyes of the outside world. The sense of ancientness, too, permeates the very atmosphere around Loch Ness. The landscape itself is primordial, sculpted by glaciers tens of thousands of years ago. The loch is a relic of the last ice age, a testament to immense geological forces. When you stand on its shores, you don't just feel the present. You feel the weight of countless millennia. This ancient energy, this sense of enduring time, only adds to the mystique. It makes the idea of a prehistoric survivor, a creature that somehow defied extinction and continued to dwell in this deep, isolated habitat, seem less like fantasy and more like a chilling possibility. The loch seems to hum with this ancient energy, a silent promise that it holds secrets far older than humanity itself. So, when the first whispers of a monster in the Ness waters began to solidify, they did so in a place perfectly designed to harbor such a myth. The vast, dark, cold, and incredibly deep waters provided not just a physical sanctuary but a psychological one. It was a place that felt mysterious, foreboding, and inherently capable of concealing something truly extraordinary and terrifying. The loch itself, with its often stormy temperament and its impenetrable darkness, became an extension of the monster, a living, breathing part of the mystery. It wasn't just in Loch Ness. It was of Loch Ness, this deep connection between the creature and its immense, ancient home forms the very bedrock of the legend, setting the stage for centuries of fear, fascination, and the enduring hunt for what lurks beneath the surface. The stage was set. The ancient echoes were in place, waiting for the modern world to finally catch up to its long-held secret. The ancient echoes from the murky depths of Loch Ness had long been whispers, confined to the isolated highlands, tales told by peat fires on long, dark nights. For centuries, the fear of the water horse and the monstrous creatures of the loch had been a local dread, a primordial anxiety rooted in folklore and the stark reality of the untamed Scottish wilderness. But then, the world began to change. The early 20th century brought new technologies, new ambitions, and a relentless push for connection. And it was this drive for progress, specifically the construction of a new road, that would inadvertently rip open the veil, bringing the ancient mystery of Loch Ness roaring into the modern age, transforming a regional legend into a global obsession. The transformation began with the humble, yet ultimately world-changing, construction of the A82 road. For countless generations, Loch Ness had been a formidable barrier, its western shore a rugged, often impassable terrain of steep hills, dense forests, and rocky outcrops. Access was limited, travel arduous. Only hardy locals, fishermen, crofters, and the occasional intrepid Victorian explorer dared to navigate its shores. And even then, their experiences were solitary, often confined to small boats or winding tracks. The loch remained largely undisturbed, its dark waters holding their secrets close, known only to those who truly lived within its foreboding embrace. The world at large barely acknowledged its existence, let alone the ancient dread it inspired. But the 1930s ushered in an era of modernization. Scotland, like much of Britain, was working to improve its infrastructure, to connect its remote regions. The decision was made to upgrade the existing tracks along the western side of Loch Ness into a proper arterial road, the A82. This was no small undertaking. It involved blasting through solid rock, cutting new paths into the hillsides, and employing a considerable workforce. For the first time, heavy machinery rumbled along the loch's edge, disrupting centuries of silence. Work crews, engineers, and construction vehicles became a constant presence, tearing at the ancient landscape. It was a violent intrusion, and it brought with it something the loch had never seen before, a sustained, intrusive human gaze. As the road neared completion in 1933, a dramatic shift occurred, where once only a handful of souls might have passed in a day. Now there was a steady stream of traffic motorists, tourists, and curious sightseers drawn by the newly accessible beauty of the highlands. This increased visibility, this sheer volume of new eyes scanning the loch's surface, acted like a vast, unintended surveillance network. The statistical chances of someone seeing something increased exponentially. And see something, they did. The year 1933 became the turning point. The first truly significant modern sighting came in April. A local couple, Mr. and Mrs. Aldi McKay, were driving along the newly opened stretch of the A82. The loch would have been a vast, dark expanse to their right, the mountains rising steeply to their left. Suddenly, Mrs. Mackay cried out. She had seen something immense, a colossal dark shape, disturbing the placid surface of the loch. She described it as a whale-like beast, creating a massive disturbance as it rolled and plunged back into the depths. Her account, earnest and convincing, was quickly reported. This wasn't some ancient, half-forgotten tale. This was a contemporary event, witnessed by a reputable member of the community. The local newspaper, the Inverness Courier, picked up the story, reporting on a monster sighting, and the fuse was lit. But it was a sighting a few months later that truly electrified the world and solidified the monster's place in the modern consciousness, moving it beyond mere water disturbance. In July 1933, prominent London businessman, George Spicer, and his wife were driving along the A82. As they rounded a bend, they were forced to brake sharply. There, directly in front of their car, crossing the road, was something truly astonishing, something that defied all known zoology. It was a creature with a long, undulating neck, a massive, dark body, and short, stubby legs. It wasn't in the water. It was on land, lumbering across the road with an ungainly, terrifying gait before disappearing into the undergrowth on the opposite side. The Spicers were utterly stunned, shaken to their core by the sheer improbability of what they had witnessed. They reported a creature with a large body and long, narrow, wavy neck, rather thicker than an elephant's leg. The sight of such a colossal beast, not just in the water, but on land, created a new dimension of terror and fascination. It meant the monster wasn't merely confined to the depths, could emerge, cross human paths, and then vanish, leaving behind only the chilling memory of its impossible form. The media, already buzzing from Mrs. Mackay's account, seized upon the Spicer sighting with a voracious appetite. The term Loch Ness Monster was coined, instantly giving a name to the nameless dread. Newspapers around the world carried the story, often with sensational headlines, turning the creature into an overnight sensation. The initial fear of the local population transformed into a global curiosity, a blend of awe, terror, and frantic speculation. The monster was no longer just a whispered tale. It was a front-page phenomenon. Other sightings quickly followed, many echoing the descriptions of a long-necked, humped creature. The MacDonald family, for instance, reported seeing a similar creature on land in October 1933, further cementing the idea that this was not merely a large fish or an otter, but something truly unique and terrifyingly physical. This sudden explosion of sightings, directly attributable to the increased access and human presence along the loch, had a profound effect. People began coming to Loch Ness not just for the scenery, but specifically to look for the monster. The quiet Highland Loch became a magnet for adventurers, journalists, and amateur naturalists. Early attempts at monster hunting began, with individuals and small groups equipped with binoculars and cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse, a photo, anything that would definitively prove its existence. The ancient dread, once a passive background element of Highland life, had been violently stirred into a modern, active quest. The A82 road hadn't just opened up the highlands. It had opened up the world to the legend of the Loch Ness monster, turning a forgotten secret into an enduring global enigma. The stage was set, not just for sightings, but for something more concrete, something that would give the world a definitive image of the unseen. That definitive image, though cloaked in blurriness and shrouded in later controversy, arrived in April 1934, profoundly solidifying Nessie's image in the public consciousness. Before this moment, the Loch Ness monster was a creature of words, of eyewitness accounts, of terrifying descriptions shared around dinner tables and in newspaper columns. People imagined a monster, but they lacked a universally accepted visual representation. The human mind craves certainty, a tangible form for its fears and fascinations. And then, it appeared, the infamous surgeon's photograph. The photograph was ostensibly taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson, a respected London surgeon, who claimed he snapped it during a morning visit to the loch. The image itself is haunting in its simplicity, a dark, indistinct shape breaking the surface of the water, clearly showing a long, slender neck arching gracefully upwards, topped by a small, almost reptilian head. Below the neck, a faint suggestion of a humped back could be seen, just barely disturbing the dark, choppy water. The background was the vast, bleak expanse of Loch Ness, the Scottish sky gray and unforgiving. It was stark, almost silhouette-like, and utterly compelling. The impact of this single, blurry photograph was immediate and immense. It was published in the Daily Mail and then quickly disseminated by news agencies around the globe. Suddenly, the Loch Ness monster had a face, a recognizable form. It wasn't just a whale-like beast or a creature with a long, wavy neck. It was this image, however indistinct, provided the concrete visual evidence that the public craved. It perfectly captured the most common descriptions of the monster, particularly the elegant, swan-like neck and small head, instantly bringing to mind images of prehistoric creatures like plesiosaurs. For many, it was the undeniable proof. The world reacted with a mixture of fervent excitement, profound fear, and heated debate. For believers, the photograph was irrefutable evidence. How could a respected surgeon create such an elaborate hoax? It seemed beyond reason. For skeptics, it was too good to be true, too perfectly aligned with the emerging narrative. Yet, for decades, it remained the iconic image of Nessie. It fueled countless articles, books, and scientific discussions. It became the definitive mental picture, the visual anchor for a creature that otherwise existed only in fleeting glimpses and terrified memories. The haunting quality of its blurriness only added to its power. It left just enough to the imagination, allowing people to project their own fears and wonders onto the indistinct shape. It was the visual ghost that haunted the collective imagination for 60 years. The image's power was so immense that its later debunking, while significant, never fully erased its iconic status. The truth about the surgeon's photograph finally emerged in 1994, revealing it to be an elaborate hoax. The true mastermind was Marmaduke Wetherill, a big-game hunter who had been publicly ridiculed by the Daily Mail after his own earlier evidence of Nessie, footprints that turned out to be from a hippopotamus foot umbrella stand, was dismissed. Seeking revenge, Wetherill, along with his stepson Christian Sperling and others, constructed a fake monster, a toy submarine fitted with a sculpted head and neck made from plastic wood. Sperling later confessed to his involvement, detailing how the miniature monster was launched and photographed in the loch. The revelation was a stunning blow to many believers and a triumphant vindication for skeptics. Yet, despite the undeniable evidence of the hoax, the surgeon's photograph continued to exert an eerie influence. For decades, it had shaped the image of the Loch Ness monster, becoming ingrained in popular culture. Even after its fraudulent nature was exposed, many found it hard to let go of the powerful visual it had created. It became a symbol not just of a hoax, but of the human desire to believe, to find concrete evidence for the incredible. It demonstrated how a powerful image, even a fabricated one, could become more real in the public imagination than 1,000 words, defining the very essence of a cryptid for generations. A phantom limb of the legend that, even when severed, continued to ache. The image of that elegant, long neck rising from the dark waters had become synonymous with the mystery of Loch Ness. A haunting visual echo that even a full confession could not entirely silence. Beyond the sensational photographs and the fleeting glimpses from passing motorists, the enduring heart of the Loch Ness monster legend lies in the sheer volume and compelling nature of eyewitness accounts. These aren't just isolated incidents. They are a continuous, often terrifying stream of reports from ordinary people, men and women from all walks of life, stretching back for decades, even centuries. While photographs can be faked and fleeting glimpses misidentified, the human experience, the visceral shock of seeing something truly inexplicable, forms the bedrock of the enigma. The witnesses are not a monolithic group of sensation seekers. They are fishermen who have spent their lives on the loch, intimately familiar with its every mood and creature. They are farmers, whose fields border the dark waters, and hotel owners who have served generations of visitors. They are tourists, yes, but also police officers, priests, doctors, and respected community members. Often, these individuals had nothing to gain from their reports, and indeed, much to lose, facing ridicule and skepticism. Yet, their accounts, often given with unwavering conviction and evident distress, paint a remarkably consistent picture of something enormous and unknown moving beneath the surface. What is most striking about these countless reports is the recurring consistency in the description of the creature. Despite the vast differences in the time, location, and background of the witnesses, over and over again, certain characteristics emerge, creating a chillingly familiar portrait of the unseen. The most frequently described feature is the long neck. Witnesses often report a slender, serpentine neck, emerging gracefully or dramatically from the water. It's rarely described as thick or stubby, but rather elegant, fluid, and capable of holding a small head surprisingly high above the surface. This neck is often described as dark, blending seamlessly with the dark water, making it even more spectral and elusive. The way it moves is also a common element, an undulating motion, sometimes like a snake, sometimes more rigid, but always creating a sense of powerful, controlled movement. Connected to this long neck is the small head. This is a recurring detail that often differentiates Nessie from more conventional marine animals. The head is typically described as disproportionately small compared to the immense body, often likened to that of a horse. a snake, or even a pug-like face. It's rarely described as having large, prominent eyes, adding to its mysterious, almost alien quality. This combination of a long neck and a small head is a key identifying feature in countless sightings, creating an unsettling visual that doesn't fit neatly into any known animal category. Beneath the surface, or occasionally breaking it, witnesses consistently describe humps or a massive body. These are often seen as dark, rounded forms, breaking the water like a series of overturned boats or large, rolling waves. Sometimes it's a single, large hump. Other times multiple humps undulating in sequence as the creature moves. These humps convey the impression of immense size, a colossal body hidden mostly beneath the water. Its true scale only hinted at by the portions that momentarily emerge. The color is almost universally described as dark black, dark gray, or brownish black, blending perfectly with the peat-stained waters of the loch. The movement of the creature is also a common thread. Witnesses describe rapid, powerful propulsion through the water, often creating a significant wake or disturbance that then quickly dissipates. It's not the sluggish movement of a known large mammal. It's often described as surprisingly swift and agile for its apparent size. And crucially, its disappearances are often just as sudden and complete as its appearances, vanishing back into the depths as if swallowed by the dark water itself, leaving behind only ripples and the profound shock of those who saw it. The emotional impact on these witnesses cannot be overstated. Many accounts speak of genuine terror, of a visceral, primal fear that gripped them at the sight of something so utterly beyond explanation. They weren't just surprised. They were deeply disturbed, often haunted by what they had seen. Imagine the farmer, going about his daily chores, suddenly seeing an impossible creature breach the surface. Its dark form a stark contrast to the familiar landscape. Or the tourist, casually gazing at the scenery, only to be confronted by a living impossibility. The shock of having one's reality shattered by such an encounter leaves a lasting impression, a memory that often stays with them for a lifetime. Consider the detailed account of Arthur Grant, a veterinary student, who in 1934 claimed to have almost collided with the monster on land while riding his motorbike near a Briahin. He described a creature with a small head on a long, tapering neck, a large oval body, and short, thick limbs that were more like flippers. He spoke of it having a tail and being about 15 to 20 feet long. His drawing, made shortly after the event, remarkably matched the general plesiosaur-like description. While such a land sighting adds another layer of unbelievable detail, it underscores the varied and often precise nature of these eyewitness reports. Another compelling account comes from Tim Dinsdale, an aeronautical engineer, who in 1960 captured 16mm film footage of a large hump moving across the loch. While debated, his unwavering belief and the detailed description he gave of the object's movement, consistent with previous sightings, added significant weight to the cumulative evidence. Dinsdale, a man of science, became a dedicated monster hunter precisely because of what he felt he had seen and filmed. The sheer accumulation of these diverse accounts, spanning decades and involving hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals, creates a profound psychological effect. Even if each individual sighting could be attributed to misidentification, a wave, a boat's wake, an otter, a seal, or even a deer swimming across the loch. The sheer volume of such misidentifications that lead to such remarkably consistent descriptions of an unknown animal is unsettling. It forces a question. How can so many disparate experiences converge on such a precise, yet unexplained, form? The earnestness of the witnesses, their often reluctant reports, and the genuine fear many convey, make it difficult to simply dismiss them all as delusion or deception. These eyewitness accounts are the lifeblood of the legend. They are the human connection to the unknown, the bridge between ancient folklore and modern fascination. They are the personal narratives of terror and awe that keep the mystery alive. Long after photographs are debunked and scientific expeditions conclude empty-handed, they are the whispers that remind us that despite all our technology and understanding, there are still depths, still corners of our world, where something truly extraordinary and terrifying might still swim, forever just beyond our grasp, seen only by fleeting, terrified eyes. The question lingers, fueled by these countless human encounters. What is it that so many ordinary people have seen? And why does it continue to haunt the dark waters of Loch Ness? The reports continue to this very day, ensuring that the legend, woven into the fabric of the human experience, will never truly die. The ancient whispers, the chilling local folklore, and the sudden surge of eyewitness accounts in the 1930s had ignited a global fascination. The world was no longer content with just hearing tales of something vast and unknown in Scotland's Loch Ness. The human drive to understand, to quantify, and to conquer the unknown demanded more. And so began a relentless, decades-long hunt for definitive proof. A quest to pierce the loch's dark veil using the ever-advancing tools of science and technology. This was the era of the modern search, where the chilling, elusive nature of the monster would be tested against the might of human ingenuity. The initial response to the surge of sightings was a scramble. Journalists, adventurers, and amateur naturalists descended upon Loch Ness, armed with cameras, binoculars, and an almost desperate hope of capturing the elusive creature. Early efforts were often rudimentary, driven more by enthusiasm than scientific method. People rented boats, staked out vantage points along the new A82 road, and spent countless hours scanning the surface, their eyes straining against the often choppy water and the deceptive play of light and shadow. Some even attempted rudimentary underwater photography, dropping cameras with flashbulbs into the dark depths, hoping for a lucky shot, though the results were invariably murky and inconclusive. The technology of the 1930s, while advancing, was simply not equipped for the daunting challenge presented by a creature in such an immense, deep, and dark environment. As the years passed and the sightings continued, albeit with fluctuating intensity, the search for the Loch Ness monster began to evolve. It moved beyond individual efforts and into the realm of more organized and increasingly scientific expeditions. The mid-20th century saw the emergence of dedicated groups, often comprised of enthusiastic amateurs and a sprinkling of scientific minds, all united by the singular, captivating mystery. One of the most significant early organizations was the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau, LNPIB. Founded in 1962, this was a crucial turning point, marking a more systematic and sustained approach to the hunt. The LNPIB brought a level of dedication previously unseen. They established shore-based observation points along the loch, Equipped with powerful binoculars, telephoto cameras, and film equipment, volunteers, often spending weeks or months at a time, meticulously recorded everything that moved on the loch's surface, hoping to catch the monster in action. Their goal was to gather irrefutable photographic or film evidence that would force a serious scientific reevaluation. While they captured many strange disturbances and ambiguous images, definitive proof remained tantalizingly out of reach. However, the real revolution in the hunt came with the application of sonar technology. Sonar, or sound navigation and ranging, was a technology developed during wartime to detect submarines. This principle is simple but powerful. Send out a pulse of sound, and then listen for the echo as it bounces off objects in the water. The time it takes for the echo to return, and the strength of that echo, can tell you about the distance, size, and even the movement of an object. For a body of water as vast, dark, and deep as Loch Ness, sonar was hailed as the ultimate tool, a way to see through the impenetrable murk that had always guarded the monster's secrets. The prospect of sonar cutting through the loch's dark veil was incredibly exciting. No longer would the search be limited to the surface. Now, the entire water column, down to the deepest abysses, could be probed. Early sonar expeditions, often in the 1960s, began tentatively. Boats equipped with basic echo sounders would traverse the loch, their operators listening intently to the rhythmic ping and the faint, sometimes startling, returns. The hopes hanging on each echo were immense. Could this be it? Could this be the moment when the unseen finally revealed itself? Not to the human eye, but to the cold, impartial ear of a machine. As the technology improved, so did the sophistication of the searches. Mini-submarines and submersibles, originally designed for oil exploration or deep-sea research, were brought to Loch Ness. Vessels like the Viperfish and P-50, and later the Pisces, descended into the loch's inky depths, equipped with cameras, lights, and increasingly powerful sonar units. These dives were fraught with challenges. The loch's water is notoriously cold. Visibility can drop to zero within a few feet, and the underwater topography is rugged and complex, with steep drop-offs, underwater canyons, and hidden ledges. Operating a submersible in such conditions was a constant battle against nature, a testament to the unwavering determination of the searchers. Beyond sonar and submersibles, other advanced equipment was deployed. Remote-controlled cameras, some even equipped with bait, were lowered for extended periods, hoping to capture footage of anything large moving in the darkness. Sophisticated hydrophones, essentially underwater microphones, were used to listen for any anomalous sounds, strange calls, unusual movements, anything that might betray the presence of a large, unknown creature. Thermal imaging cameras were employed from aircraft, trying to detect heat signatures on the surface or just beneath, though the loch's cold temperatures made this particularly challenging. Every new technological advancement, every refinement of existing tools, was brought to bear on the Loch Ness mystery, fueled by the conviction that science, given enough time and resources, could surely uncover the truth. The hunt had become an enduring scientific and technological battle against an ancient, elusive adversary. Yet, despite the formidable arsenal of technology and the tireless dedication of countless searchers, The results remained agonizingly inconclusive. This is the heart of the enigma of the Loch Ness monster, the tantalizing, yet ultimately unverified, sonar contacts and fleeting images that suggest something large is indeed there, but remains stubbornly, hauntingly unseen. The promise of definitive proof was always just around the corner, always a mere echo away, yet it never fully materialized. The 1960s saw some of the earliest compelling sonar contacts. The LNPIB, utilizing more advanced sonar, recorded several instances of large, moving objects in the deeper parts of the loch that could not be explained by known fish shoals or underwater currents. In 1969, a submersible named Viperfish operating in the loch made significant sonar contact with what appeared to be a large, solid object moving at considerable speed. The operators were convinced it was an animate object, but it quickly moved out of range before it could be visually confirmed or recorded by other means. These events created immense excitement, suggesting that the monster was not just a myth but a physical presence, actively avoiding detection. The 1970s brought some of the most famous and most debated evidence from the deep, led by American scientist Robert Rines and his Academy of Applied Science AAS team. These expeditions used advanced sonar alongside innovative underwater camera systems. These cameras were equipped with powerful strobe lights and were triggered by sonar contacts, designed to snap pictures of whatever was making the echoes. The conditions were incredibly difficult: zero visibility, freezing temperatures, and immense pressure. Despite these challenges, the AAS expeditions produced what they considered groundbreaking results. In 1972, after receiving a strong sonar contact, a camera captured a blurred image that, when enhanced, seemed to show a large, diamond-shaped flipper or fin. It was enormous, measuring several feet across, and appeared to be attached to a larger body. This image, along with other similar, albeit even more indistinct, photos taken in subsequent years, sparked a fresh wave of excitement. The flipper photograph was particularly compelling because it strongly resembled the flippers of a plesiosaur, a prehistoric marine reptile. Could this be the evidence? Could a creature thought to be extinct for millions of years still be swimming in Loch Ness? Further tantalizing images emerged. 1. Famously dubbed the gargoyle photo by some, showed what appeared to be a head and neck with peculiar features, possibly even horn-like protuberances. Another seemed to show part of a body, large and dark. These images, though blurry and subject to intense scrutiny and debate, were presented as scientific evidence, published in reputable journals like Nature. Rines and his team were convinced that their sonar contacts and photographic evidence collectively pointed to the existence of one or more large, unknown animals, most likely a type of long-necked marine reptile. However, the key word here is elusive. Each time a promising contact or image emerged, definitive, irrefutable confirmation remained just out of reach. The flipper photo, while exciting, was incredibly blurred and its interpretation was subjective. Critics argued it could be anything from debris to a known animal, distorted by the poor visibility and photographic process. The gargoyle image was even more ambiguous. The contacts themselves were fleeting. The creatures seemed to move with an uncanny ability to evade sustained observation. It was a pattern that would repeat, a flash of potential, a glimpse of the impossible. then a swift return to the impenetrable mystery. Perhaps the most ambitious and high-profile expedition was Operation Deep Scan in 1987. This was a massive undertaking, funded by American philanthropist Gary Campbell, who famously declared, "If there's a monster there, we will find it." A flotilla of 24 boats, each equipped with sophisticated sonar systems, swept the entire loch in a coordinated grid pattern, creating a comprehensive three-dimensional map of the underwater environment and simultaneously searching for any large anomalies. The goal was to leave no stone unturned, no corner of the loch unexplored by sonar. For weeks, the teams worked tirelessly, the sonar operators glued to their screens, the air thick with anticipation. The sheer scale of the operation was unprecedented. And then, it happened. In the deepest part of the loch, in an area known as the Bona Narrows, multiple sonar units simultaneously registered a large, rapidly moving object. The contact was solid, consistent across several systems, and clearly indicated something substantial and alive. The excitement was immense. This was what they had been waiting for. A large research vessel, equipped with a powerful searchlight and camera, was immediately dispatched to the location, racing against time to reach the point before the object vanished. But, true to the frustrating nature of the Loch Ness mystery, by the time the search vessel arrived, the contact had disappeared. The object, whatever it was, had simply vanished back into the vastness of the loch, leaving behind only the echo of its passage and the profound disappointment of the searchers. While the sonar data from Deep Scan was highly compelling, suggesting large, mobile objects in the depths, the ultimate lack of visual confirmation meant that once again, the definitive proof had slipped away. More recent expeditions, utilizing even higher resolution multi-beam sonar and remotely operated underwater vehicles (ROVs), continue this frustrating pattern. Large, unexplained anomalies are occasionally detected. Strange shapes and movements that defy easy explanation by known fish or debris. Some sonar scans have revealed intriguing underwater cave systems, or unusual geological formations, adding to the loch's mysterious character. Yet, the final, undeniable image, the clear video footage, or the indisputable biological sample of an unknown creature remains elusive. The scientific hunt has been a testament to human perseverance, but it has also been a continuous exercise in tantalization, with the monster always just beyond the reach of our most advanced instruments, leaving us with only the haunting suggestion of its presence and the profound frustration of the unseen. The tireless hunt for evidence, however, has always been accompanied by a persistent shadow of doubt. For every compelling eyewitness account or tantalizing sonar contact, there has been a counter-argument, a skeptical explanation, or even the crushing revelation of a hoax. This constant interplay of belief and disbelief, of the extraordinary and the mundane, has profoundly clouded the search for the Loch Ness monster, making it a battle not just against the loch's physical challenges, but against human perception, credulity, and sometimes outright deception. Yet, remarkably, this shadow of doubt has never fully silenced the legend. Instead, it often seems to fuel its enduring mystery. One of the most damaging elements to the credibility of the Loch Ness monster legend has been the proliferation of hoaxes. The most famous of these, the surgeon's photograph, from 1934, stands as a stark reminder of how easily the public, and even seasoned researchers, can be fooled. For decades, that iconic, blurry image of a long neck and small head rising from the water was considered the gold standard of photographic evidence. It shaped the public's perception of Nessie and was endlessly reproduced. Its eventual debunking in 1994, revealing it to be a toy submarine with a plastic wood head, was a massive blow to the legend's credibility. It proved that even the most compelling visual proof could be an elaborate fabrication. This single hoax cast a long shadow, making every subsequent photograph and video immediately suspect, eroding trust and adding a layer of cynicism to the entire search. Beyond this major deception, there have been numerous smaller, often less sophisticated, hoaxes, fabricated stories, faked photographs, and even instances of individuals deliberately creating disturbances in the water to perpetuate the myth. Each successful hoax, even if eventually exposed, contributes to the overall skepticism, making it harder for genuine, unexplained sightings to be taken seriously. Beyond deliberate deception, many supposed monster sightings and even some sonar contacts can be attributed to the misinterpretation of natural phenomena. Loch Ness, with its unique environment, is a breeding ground for optical illusions and natural occurrences that can easily be mistaken for something extraordinary by an eager observer. One of the most common explanations is standing waves or seiches. These are oscillations of the water in an enclosed body, often caused by changes in atmospheric pressure or wind. In a long, narrow loch like Ness, these waves can become quite pronounced, creating the illusion of large, dark humps moving across the surface, especially when viewed from a distance or in specific lighting conditions. A series of these waves could easily be misinterpreted as the humps of a large creature undulating through the water, particularly by someone already predisposed to seeing the monster. Large fish are also frequently cited as alternative explanations. While a typical trout or salmon wouldn't fit the bill, there are larger freshwater species that could, under certain circumstances, create unusual surface disturbances. The European eel, for example, can grow to surprising lengths and girths, particularly in deep, nutrient-rich waters. If a very large eel, or even a group of eels, were to surface or swim close to the surface, its movement could potentially be mistaken for something larger and more complex. Some even propose the existence of a hitherto undiscovered species of giant eel, though direct evidence for this remains absent. Sturgeon, another large freshwater fish, have also been suggested, though their presence in Loch Ness is unconfirmed and their typical behavior doesn't align with most Nessie descriptions. Otters and seals are often put forward, especially for closer-range sightings. While otters are far too small to account for the descriptions of a large monster, a group of them swimming in single file can, from a distance, create an optical illusion of a much larger, multi-humped creature. Seals, while marine animals, do occasionally venture into freshwater lochs connected to the sea. A large seal could certainly create a noticeable disturbance and might, in poor visibility, be misidentified. However, their typical body shape and surfacing behavior generally do not match the long-necked descriptions of Nessie. Logs, debris, and boat wakes account for many other supposed sightings. Large pieces of timber, especially after storms, can become waterlogged and float just beneath the surface, occasionally breaking it. Their dark, irregular shapes, particularly in choppy water, can easily be mistaken for parts of a living creature. Similarly, the wakes of passing boats, especially if they are out of sight or if the waves reflect strangely off the loch's banks, can be interpreted as the movement of a large, submerged object. The effect of light and shadow, particularly at dawn or dusk, can also play tricks on the eyes, turning an ordinary object into something ominous and monstrous. Finally, psychological factors play a significant role in the shadow of doubt. Expectation bias is a powerful force. If people are looking for the Loch Ness monster, they are inherently more likely to interpret ambiguous visual or auditory stimuli as evidence of the monster. Their minds are primed to see it. This is closely related to pareidolia, the psychological phenomenon where the mind perceives a familiar pattern, like an animal shape, in a random or vague stimulus. A log, a wave, or a distant bird could, under the influence of expectation and pareidolia, be transformed into the long neck or humped back of Nessie. The thrill of being the one to see it, to confirm the legend, can also unconsciously influence perception. The mainstream scientific community, while acknowledging the cultural significance of the legend, largely remains unconvinced of the monster's existence due to the persistent lack of concrete, reproducible, and verifiable evidence. The blurred photographs, the fleeting sonar contacts, and the often contradictory eyewitness accounts do not meet the rigorous standards of scientific proof. For scientists, the absence of definitive evidence, despite decades of searching with increasingly sophisticated technology, weighs heavily against the monster's reality. However, and this is crucial, the shadow of doubt cuts both ways. While it casts skepticism on the monster's existence, it also means that the mystery is never fully and definitively debunked. It is virtually impossible to prove a negativito prove that nothing is there. The sheer scale, depth, and darkness of Loch Ness mean that even with modern technology, it is still possible for something large and elusive to remain hidden. The fact that no definitive body has been found, no conclusive photograph taken, and no irrefutable biological sample retrieved, allows the legend to persist in a frustrating, haunting limbo. The monster may be unproven, but it is also undisproven. And in that tantalizing, unresolved space, the legend continues to swim, a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown, forever just beyond the grasp of our instruments and our understanding, ensuring that the dark waters of Loch Ness will continue to hold their secrets, perpetually shrouded in a captivating blend of hope and skepticism. The Loch Ness monster, Nessie, has defied centuries of scrutiny, countless expeditions, and the relentless march of scientific progress. It has retreated from sonar pings, vanished from the lens of cameras, and slipped back into the murky depths just as definitive proof seemed within grasp. Yet, the legend endures, a testament to the captivating power of the unknown and the human yearning to believe in something extraordinary. As the modern search yields tantalizing but inconclusive results, the conversation inevitably turns back to the fundamental question: what could Nessie be? This leads us to the enduring theories, each offering a glimpse into the human mind's struggle to rationalize the impossible, and each carrying its own peculiar brand of lingering dread. The most popular, and perhaps most terrifying, theory about Nessie's true identity is that of a plesiosaur survivor. This idea didn't emerge from nowhere. It was a natural fit for the descriptions that began to proliferate in the 1930s. When people described a creature with a long, graceful neck, a small head, a large, bulky body, and powerful flippers, their minds instinctively turned to images from prehistoric times. The plesiosaur, a marine reptile that dominated the oceans during the Mesozoic era, fits this description almost perfectly. Plesiosaurs were not dinosaurs, but they coexisted with them, thriving in the ancient seas for millions of years before their presumed extinction alongside the dinosaurs around 66 million years ago. Imagine them massive creatures, some stretching to over 40 feet in length, with their remarkably long, flexible necks, relatively small heads armed with sharp teeth, and stout, barrel-shaped bodies propelled through the water by four powerful, paddle-like flippers. They were formidable predators, perfectly adapted to a life in the ancient oceans. The physical descriptions of Nessie, particularly those from the surgeon's photograph, even if later debunked, and countless eyewitness accounts, strikingly align with this ancient blueprint. The elegant curve of the neck, the implied power of the submerged body, the sudden appearances and disappearances, it all conjures a vivid image of a living plesiosaur. The idea of a plesiosaur surviving in Loch Ness is incredibly compelling because it taps into a deep human fascination, the concept of a living fossil. A creature from a lost world that has somehow defied extinction and continued to exist, hidden from human eyes, in a remote corner of our modern planet. It implies a secret, a profound anomaly in the accepted scientific timeline of life on Earth. It suggests that our understanding of evolution and extinction is incomplete, and that incredible, impossible things might still exist in the deep, dark places of the world. However, the plesiosaur theory faces immense scientific hurdles, creating a profound paradox. The primary scientific argument against a plesiosaur in Loch Ness is the question of how it could have survived for millions of years in an inland freshwater loch. Plesiosaurs were saltwater marine reptiles. While some reptiles can adapt to freshwater, a complete and sustained evolutionary shift for an entire species is a monumental undertaking, especially one of this size. Furthermore, for a breeding population to thrive for 66 million years, a significant number of individuals would be required, certainly more than a single animal. This leads to the population problem: could a viable breeding population of such large, air-breathing creatures remain entirely undetected in Loch Ness? Even with its depth and murkiness, a population would need to surface regularly to breathe, to mate, and to feed, making complete evasion incredibly difficult. Then there is the issue of food supply. Loch Ness, while vast, is not an ocean. Its ecosystem, primarily based on trout, salmon, and eels, while rich for a freshwater loch, may not be sufficient to sustain a breeding population of massive, warm-blooded or even partially warm-blooded. As some theories suggest, plesiosaurs might have been predators for millions of years. The energy requirements for such large animals are enormous, and the loch's productivity might simply be too low. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, there is the cold water environment. Plesiosaurs were reptiles, generally considered to be cold-blooded, ectothermic. The average temperature of Loch Ness is around 5 degrees Celsius, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Even in summer, Such consistently cold temperatures would be a severe challenge for a large reptile. While some reptiles can tolerate cold, sustaining a massive body mass and metabolic activity in such conditions for an extended period, particularly for millions of years, without significant evolutionary adaptation, is highly improbable. This challenge has led to speculation that Nessie might be a warm-blooded plesiosaur, or some other highly adapted, unique evolutionary offshoot. But there is no fossil evidence to support such claims. Despite these formidable scientific objections, the plesiosaur paradox remains the most captivating and enduring theory. The visual resemblance is simply too strong, and the idea of a living dinosaur, a prehistoric survivor, is too alluring to dismiss entirely for many believers. It ignites the imagination and fuels the hope that some of the greatest mysteries of Earth's past might still be swimming in its present, forever hidden in plain sight. A haunting reminder that what we think we know about life's history might still hold astonishing secrets. While the plesiosaur theory captures the imagination with its dramatic implications, a more scientifically grounded, yet still unsettling, explanation focuses on the humble, ubiquitous eel. The giant eel hypothesis posits that many, if not all, of the Loch Ness monster sightings could be attributed to exceptionally large, and perhaps even undiscovered, species of eels. The European eel Anguilla anguilla is a remarkable creature. It begins its life in the Sargasso Sea, travels across the Atlantic as tiny transparent leptocephalus larvae, and then enters freshwater rivers and lochs, where it can live for many years, sometimes decades, growing to considerable size before returning to the Sargasso Sea to spawn and die. While a typical European eel might reach a length of 3 to 4 feet. Some historical accounts and anecdotal evidence suggest that in very old, deep, and undisturbed freshwater systems, eels can grow significantly larger. Reports of eels reaching 6 to 8 feet, or even more, have occasionally surfaced from remote locations. If eels in Loch Ness were capable of growing to genuinely immense sizes, perhaps 10 to 20 feet or even more, they could potentially account for a significant number of Nessie sightings. Imagine a truly colossal eel. Its dark, serpentine body undulating just beneath the surface, or occasionally breaching it. Its movement could easily create the appearance of humps. Its head, while not small in the same way a plesiosaur's is, could appear relatively small and snake-like when only a portion of its neck-like body is visible above the water. Eels are also incredibly elusive, spending most of their lives in the darkest parts of their habitat, perfectly suited for the deep, murky conditions of Loch Ness. Their behavior, too, could mimic some of the monster's reported movements, sudden appearances, swift dives, and the ability to disappear without a trace. Recent scientific studies have lent some surprising credence to the giant eel hypothesis. A 2019 DNA sampling project in Loch Ness, led by Professor Neil Gemmell of the University of Otago, New Zealand, involved collecting water samples from various depths and locations across the loch. The scientists then extracted and analyzed the environmental DNA, EDNA, present in these samples, tiny fragments of genetic material shed by all living organisms. The results were fascinating. The EDNA analysis revealed no genetic traces of any large, unknown marine reptiles, nor any large fish like sturgeon or Greenland sharks. However, it did find an unusually high concentration of eel DNA throughout the loch. Professor Gemmell stated that while the Edna didn't definitively prove the existence of giant eels, it certainly indicated a significant and widespread eel population. He suggested that if there are indeed huge eels in Loch Ness, they are the most plausible scientific explanation for the sightings. He even acknowledged that if a statistically small proportion of eels grew to truly enormous sizes, then the likelihood of misidentifying them as a monster would increase. This scientific finding provides a tangible, biological basis for the eel hypothesis, moving it beyond mere speculation. However, the giant eel hypothesis also faces its own challenges. While large eels are known, an eel of the colossal size required to account for all Nessie sightings, particularly those describing multiple distinct humps or a very long, rigid neck, has never been scientifically documented. No specimen of an eel measuring 15 to 20 feet or more has ever been caught or examined. The sheer metabolic and growth requirements for an eel to reach such dimensions are immense, and whether Loch Ness could sustain such a unique supersized population remains an open question. While the Edna study points to eels, it doesn't confirm the existence of giant eels. Furthermore, some eyewitness accounts, especially those describing 4 distinct flippers or a very distinct head shape, are difficult to reconcile with even a very large eel. The elegance of the swan neck descriptions, too, is often hard to fit with the more serpentine movement of an eel. Despite these caveats, the giant eel hypothesis provides a compelling and scientifically plausible, if not entirely satisfying, explanation for a significant portion of the Loch Ness sightings. It moves the conversation away from the fantastical and towards the realm of biological possibility, suggesting that the monster might be a known creature, just one push to its absolute limits of size and elusiveness by the unique environment of Loch Ness. It suggests that the monster might be real, but just not as extraordinary as we might hope, yet still capable of inspiring awe and fear, beyond the specific theories of plesiosaurs or giant eels. The enduring power of the Loch Ness monster legend taps into something far deeper and more primal within the human psyche: the unspoken fear of deep, dark waters and the ancient, unknown creatures they might conceal. This is a fear that transcends cultures and eras, reaching back to the very dawn of humanity. Before scientific instruments and detailed maps, our ancestors looked upon vast, dark bodies of water with a mixture of reverence and profound trepidation. They knew that such depths could hide anything, that the unseen was often dangerous, and that the familiar world ended abruptly at the water's edge. Loch Ness embodies this primal fear perfectly. Its vastness is intimidating. Its depth is unfathomable. The water itself is so dark, so peat-stained, that it creates an immediate sense of mystery and concealment. You cannot see more than a few feet into it, even on the brightest day. This lack of visibility is a psychological trigger. What we cannot see, our minds are compelled to imagine. And often, what we imagine is far more terrifying than any reality. The human brain is hardwired to detect threats, and a dark, deep, unknown environment is the ultimate blank canvas for projecting our deepest anxieties. The monster in the deep trope is universal across human mythology. From the leviathans of ancient texts to the sea serpents of Viking sagas, to the water spirits and kelpies of Scottish folklore, humanity has consistently populated the watery abyss with creatures of immense power, often malevolent, always mysterious. These myths serve a purpose. They are narratives born from a very real, very ancient fear of drowning, of being dragged down into the cold, silent grip of the water, never to return. Loch Ness, with its ancient legends and its modern sightings, simply provides a contemporary manifestation of this timeless fear. It resonates with a deep-seated apprehension that, despite all our advancements, there are still parts of our world that remain wild, untamed, and potentially lethal. The enduring fascination with cryptids, animals whose existence is unproven but for which there is anecdotal evidence, is also a key factor. Nessie is perhaps the most famous cryptid in the world, a symbol for all the creatures that science has yet to acknowledge. This fascination stems from a desire for wonder, a hope that the world still holds marvels beyond our current understanding. In an increasingly charted and understood world, the idea that a prehistoric creature, or a giant unknown species, could still be lurking, unseen, offers a last bastion of genuine mystery. It's a challenge to our perceived knowledge, a reminder that we might not know everything, and that the Earth still holds incredible secrets. This hope for the extraordinary is a powerful driver for the belief in Nessie. Furthermore, the very act of searching, of believing, provides a sense of adventure and connection to something larger than oneself. For those who dedicated their lives to the hunt, or even just for those who visit the loch hoping for a glimpse, the mystery of Nessie offers a unique escape from the mundane. It allows people to dream of the impossible, to engage with a narrative of ancient secrets and thrilling discovery. The very lack of definitive proof, rather than killing the legend, actively fuels it. It allows for continued speculation, for new theories, for the constant reinvigoration of the search. If Nessie were definitively found and identified, much of its mysterious allure would vanish. The monster, in its elusive state, remains a potent symbol of the unknown. Finally, the lingering dread itself is a powerful draw. There's a certain thrill in the idea that a prehistoric monster could still be out there, swimming in the depths of Loch Ness. It's a controlled fear, a safe encounter with the terrifying unknown. It's the same psychological pull that draws us to ghost stories or horror films, a chance to experience fear from a safe distance, to confront our anxieties about the wildness of the world without actually being in danger. The thought of a dark, unseen behemoth lurking beneath the water, watching, waiting, creates a chilling sense of unease, an ever-present hum of potential danger that makes the loch feel alive with possibility, but also with ancient, powerful threat. In the end, the legend of the Loch Ness monster, woven from ancient folklore, modern sightings, and the frustrating dance of scientific inquiry and skepticism, persists because it speaks to something fundamental within us. It is a story about the boundaries of our knowledge, the allure of the unknown, and the enduring human fascination with the deep, dark places of the world. Whether it's a plesiosaur, a giant eel, or something else entirely, Nessie remains a powerful symbol of the mysteries that still elude us. A haunting question mark in the vast, cold waters of a Scottish loch, keeping the primordial fear of the unseen alive and well in the modern age. The murky depths of Loch Ness still hold their secrets. Is it merely a myth, or does something ancient and terrifying continue to glide through the abyss, forever beyond our grasp? Thank you for daring to delve into the unknown with Grave Vale Echoes. If these whispers from the past captivated you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Until next time, keep exploring the shadows.